The old man's hands trembled as they hovered over the console. Not from age, not from fear, from memory. Dr. Ethan Crow had seen this moment before, lived it, failed it. The scar on his right forearm, faint white, decades old, itched as he watched the security feed. The young man being dragged down Corridor 7 didn't know what was coming. Didn't know that in 48 hours he'd either be dead or reborn. The guards threw the prisoner forward. The cell doors sealed with 3 sharp magnetic thuds. 1, 2, 3, like coffin nails. On the monitor, the young man, Thaddeus Crow, the manifest read, lay still on the cold floor. His breath came in controlled bursts. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. A rescuer's rhythm, a survivor's discipline. Dr. Crow leaned closer to the screen. In the corner of the cell, 2 shapes waited in the darkness. One large coiled wounded, one small trembling, terrified, both deadly. This time, the old man whispered to the empty room, "Let them choose." He pressed a button. The lights in the cell flickered to life, and the story began again. The floor wasn't just cold, it was a thief. It leached the warmth from my cheek the instant I hit the metal scraping skin from my palms as I tried to break the fall. I didn't slide. The surface had texture. Microscopic grit designed to keep desperate men from gaining traction when they tried to run. Not that there was anywhere to run. My shoulder took most of the impact. White-hot pains shot up my neck, followed immediately by that sound. The one that told me this wasn't temporary. 1, 2, 3. Magnetic locks engaging with the finality of a judge's gavel. I tasted copper, blood from where I'd bitten my tongue. For a moment, I just lay there. Breathing, thinking, not panicking. Panic burns oxygen. In a place like this, the bowels of the Lattice Arc, a glorified prison barge, drifting through the outer system's oxygen was currency. Rationed, measured. You didn't waste it on fear. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. The rescuer's mantra, the only thing standing between me and the screaming terror clawing at the back of my skull. I pushed myself up. 45 years old and my body protested like I was 70. 2 days of processing will do that. Processing, that's what they called it when they stripped you down, cataloged your scars, and threw you in a holding pen with 100 other condemned souls. I sat back on my heels, let my eyes adjust. The cell was maybe 4 meters square. Bare metal walls, a single bunk bolted to the floor. A reclamation unit in the corner that doubled as a toilet and water dispenser. And overhead a dying halogen strip that buzzed like an angry wasp, casting everything in sickly yellow light. But it was the smell that got me first. Old blood. Copper and salt baked into the metal by time and heat. Underneath that, the sharp chemical burn of industrial disinfectant. The kind that strips away evidence but never quite kills the stench of what happened before. And beneath it all, something else. Something musky, wild, afraid. I wasn't alone. The sound came from the deepest corner. A low, vibrating rumble. Too deep to be a purr. Too rhythmic to be a growl. It was a warning. The kind a predator gives when you've stepped too close to her den. Then I heard the breathing. 2 sets of lungs working in the dark. "I know you're there," I said. My voice came out rough. Dry as parchment. The response was immediate. A sharp hiss, then the scrape of claws on metal. Not the click of nails on tile. The screech of something sharp enough to carve steel. The overhead light flickered. Once. Twice. Then strobed into full painful brightness. I saw them. They were pressed into the far corner backs against the riveted bulkhead like they were trying to merge with the metal itself. 2 of them. Ferry. I'd seen Ferry before, mostly in the transit hubs of the mid-rim colonies. They moved with a liquid grace that made humans look like we were stumbling through molasses. Beautiful in the way a switchblade is beautiful. Elegant, dangerous, designed. But I'd never seen them like this. The larger one, the one the guards had been laughing about while taking bets on her survival, was a coiled spring of muscle and fury. Obsidian fur that seemed to drink the light. Easily over 6 feet tall, even crouched on her haunches. Her ears were flattened against her skull. Lips pulled back to reveal teeth that could puncture hull plating. Her eyes locked onto mine. Vertical slits, amber and green, intelligent, calculating, and terrified. But it was the dark, wet patch on her side that made my stomach drop. Blood, fresh and old, soaking through matted fur. The smell hit me a second later. Sweet, rotting infection. She was dying. Next to her, half hidden by the larger fairy's body, was a smaller figure. Younger, maybe adolescent, though alien physiology made it hard to tell. Gray and white fur mottled like storm clouds. Where the big one was coiled rage, this one was shattered glass. Her eyes were too wide. Pupils blown out so large, the golden irises were just thin rings. She was shaking. A constant, violent tremor that made her claws rattle against the floor like dice in a cup. The guards had called them feral. "Try not to get eaten before the show starts," one had said before shoving me through the door. I raised my hands slowly, palms open, empty. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said. The big one shifted, placed herself more firmly between me and the small one. A growl ripped from her throat, escalating in volume until I could feel it in my chest. She looked ready to launch herself across the 3 meters separating us. Then the ark screamed, not a sound of metal failing. A groan, a deep resonant vibration that came from everywhere at once. The gravity generators straining against something they weren't designed to handle. The floor beneath me stopped being down. For a heartbeat, there was no up or down. Just suspension. Weightlessness. My stomach lurched into my throat as the artificial gravity cut out completely. I flailed, grabbed at empty air. My boots kicked uselessly, seeking purchase on a floor that was no longer there. Across the room, the two fairy were thrown upward. The big one snarled, twisting in midair with impossible grace. Her claws sparked against the wall. She tried to find a grip. But the small one, lighter, smaller, she was launched like a projectile. "Watch out!" I shouted. She tumbled through the air, limbs flailing, uncontrolled, helpless, and then she hit me. The impact drove what little air I had from my lungs. We slammed into what had been the ceiling, was now a wall. Her weight surprisingly light, hollow-boned, like a bird pressed against me. I braced, waited for claws to shred my flight suit, waited for teeth to find my throat. But it didn't come. Instead, her hands, remarkably human in shape, despite the retractable claws clamped onto the front of my jacket. She didn't strike. She didn't bite. She buried her face in my chest. Her entire body was rigid, trembling so hard I could feel it in my bones. And then I felt something else. A sound, coming from her chest. High-pitched, desperate. A whimper wrapped in a growl, wrapped in a sob. And underneath that, pressed against my ribs, I felt the rapid-fire hammer of her heart. Thump, 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 thump. It was beating so fast I feared it might burst. The gravity generators groaned, fighting, straining against the turbulence outside. The veil storm. The churning nightmare of folded space that surrounded the ark like a predator circling wounded prey. Slowly, agonizingly, the room righted itself. We fell. I hit the floor on my back. Again, the small fairy sprawled on top of me. She didn't move, just lay there, ear pressed flat against my sternum. Listening, thump, 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 my heart. The only steady rhythm in a world of chaos. Her trembling slowed. Just a fraction. Her breathing, shallow, panicked, began to match mine. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. She was anchoring to me. "Get away from him." The voice was rough, deep, resonant, like gravel being dragged across steel. I turned my head. The big one, the wounded warrior, was on her feet, swaying. Her eyes were fever bright, burning with a rage that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with helplessness. She didn't lunge, probably because the gravity shift had torn something open. Fresh blood was seeping through the bandage of matted fur on her side. But her intent was clear. The small one scrambled off me, retreated backward on all fours with a speed that blurred the eye, but she didn't return to the corner. She stopped halfway, crouched, her gaze darting between the big one and me, confused, torn. I sat up slowly, rubbed my bruised chest, looked at the small one. She was staring at me, or rather, at my chest, at the place where she'd pressed her ear. Her head tilted, bird-like, sharp, inquisitive. She brought a hand to her own chest, tapped it once, then looked back at me. "Yeah," I said, wincing as I shifted. "I'm alive, surprise." I looked at the big one, at the way she was swaying on her feet, at the dark wet patch spreading across her fur. The smell hit me then. Sweet, cloying, wrong, infection. "You're septic," I said, pointed at her side. She bared her teeth, hissed, took a step back, stumbled. "If you don't clean that," I continued, voice flat, "you'll be dead in 48 hours. Maybe less if the fever spikes." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood the tone, the clinical detachment of a man who'd seen too many people die from treatable wounds. I reached into my jacket, slowly, deliberately. Immediately she tensed. Claws extended fully, 6 inches of curved black talon that could open me from throat to groin. "Easy," I murmured. "Just easy." From the inner lining of my battered flight jacket, I withdrew a small vacuum-sealed pouch. My last resort kit. Every scavenger and rescuer in the outer systems carried one. Water, a single bioadhesive bandage, a vial of broad-spectrum antiseptic, and a tube of nutrient paste that tasted like wet cardboard but could keep you moving for a day. I set the kit on the floor between us. "Water," I said, tapped the flask. "Medicine," pointed to the vial. "Food." I slid the items across the metal. They spun to a stop exactly between us. She looked at them, then at me. Her eyes amber and green and burning with fever, calculated. This was a trap. In a place like the Ark, nothing was given. Everything was taken. "I don't want anything from you," I said. A lie. I wanted her to trust me, but trust couldn't be demanded, only offered. The small one was watching the nutrient tube with an intensity that broke something in my chest. She was starving. The hollows of her cheeks were visible, even under the fur. "Go on," I said, kept my voice soft. The small one looked at the big one, the warrior, the protector. For a long moment, nothing happened. The big one's chest heaved. Sweat, or whatever fairy sweat, was matted her fur. She was fighting to stay conscious. Then slowly she gave a microscopic nod. The small one moved. She didn't walk. She flowed. Liquid. Graceful. She was at the pile of supplies in a blink. Grabbed the nutrient tube and the water. Then she paused. Her large gold-ringed eyes turned to me. She crept closer, within arm's reach. I could smell her now. Dust, static electricity, fear. She reached out a hand, claws retracted, fingers long and slender tipped with coarse tactile pads. She didn't reach for my throat. She reached for my hand. Quick as a snake, she snatched the heavy leather work glove from my left hand. "Hey, hey." I started instinctively pulling back, but she was already gone, darted back to the shadows, clutching the glove to her chest like it was a holy relic. She buried her nose in the leather. Inhaled deeply. It smelled of engine grease. Old sweat, oil, me. I sat there, one hand bare and cold, the other gloved, staring. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. Hysterical, jagged. I swallowed it down. "Okay," I muttered. "Team-building exercises like this are usually banned back home. But sure, keep the glove. It matches your eyes." She tilted her head, didn't understand the words. But the tone lack of aggression, a hint of weary amusement, seemed to puzzle her. She took a bite of the nutrient paste, tore the plastic with her teeth, then offered the rest to the big one. The warrior took it, drank, ate, never taking her eyes off me. Above us the lights flickered again, followed by a low resonant hum that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I looked to my right. The metal bulkhead wasn't smooth. Under the grime there were etchings, complex fractal patterns, geometric. They looked less like engineering schematics and more like circuitry grown from seeds. And they were glowing, faintly, pulsing. I placed my bare hand against the cold metal. The vibration was palpable. It felt like the ship was purring. Thump, thump. The wall pulsed. Thump, thump, my heart beat, in sync. "What is this place?" I whispered. Before I could investigate further, a hiss of pneumatics cut through the silence. High up on the wall near the ceiling, a vent shutter snapped open. No fresh air came through. Instead, a thick pinkish mist began to spray into the room. The smell hit me instantly, sickeningly sweet, like overripe fruit left to rot in the sun. mixed with a sharp metallic tang that stung the back of my throat. Gas. I pulled the collar of my jacket up over my nose and mouth. Cover your faces. But the fairy didn't cover their faces. The effect on them was immediate. The big one who'd been slumped against the wall drinking suddenly arched her back. A guttural sound ripped from her throat. Not pain, distress, pure, unadulterated chemical panic. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were black pools. The muscles in her arms rippled, spasms of adrenaline flooding her system. The mist wasn't poison, it was a trigger, an aggression amplifier. Pheromone synthesizer designed to strip away higher brain functions and leave only the raw feral instinct to fight or kill. The small one dropped the glove, clawed at her own ears, shaking her head violently as if trying to dislodge a wasp from her skull. She screamed, high, piercing, too much like a human child, and the big one was gone. The intelligent, wary warrior who'd assessed the situation moments ago was replaced by something older, something primal, a biological weapon. She turned toward me. She didn't see a man who'd given her water. She saw a target, an obstacle, prey. She roared, a sound that shook the rivets in the floor, and launched herself. I scrambled backward, but the cell was too small. Stop! She was on me. The weight was crushing. I threw my arms up, protecting my throat. Her claws, thank God, for reinforced leather scrabbled against the thick sleeves of my jacket. But the force of the impact drove the breath from my lungs. I saw her face, inches from mine, jaws open, saliva dripping from fangs that could puncture bone. But her eyes, inside the black void of her chemically dilated pupils, I saw something. Horror. She was trapped, a passenger in a vehicle that had been hijacked. Get off, I grunted, brought my knee up, created space, shoved her to the side. I rolled away, scrambled to my feet, put the metal bunk between us. She shook her head, growling, preparing to leap again. But she didn't look at me. Her gaze snapped to the side, to the small one. The younger fairy was writhing on the floor. The mist was affecting her differently. She wasn't aggressive. She was terrified, hallucinating, clawing at the air, backing into the corner where the mist was thickest. And the big one's feral instinct locked onto the movement. Prey, weakness. She crouched, muscles coiling to spring at the child. No, I didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't weigh survival probability. I moved. As she sprang, I threw myself into her path. Didn't try to fight her. That was suicide. I acted as a shield. I collided with her in midair, wrapped my arms around her torso, used my own momentum to tackle her away from the small one. We hit the ground hard. I felt a sharp pain flare in my forearm as a claw tore through fabric and scored skin. Warm blood. My blood. I gritted my teeth, refused to let go. Listen to me, I shouted into her ear. This isn't you, it's the gem. She was too strong. She broke my grip with a heave of her shoulders that nearly dislocated my jaw. Spun around, pinned me to the floor. Her hand, a paw of deadly intent raised, claws fully extended, ready to swipe my throat out. I stared up at death, but in that split second I saw the wound on her side. The movement had torn the scab. Fresh blood was seeping out, and I saw the bundle of nerves just under the armpit, exposed by her raised arm, a pressure point, universal physiology, where the brachial plexus met the cluster of lymph nodes. My hand shot out. I didn't strike. I pressed. I drove my thumb into the nerve cluster, digging deep, finding the gap between muscle groups, squeezing with every ounce of strength I had left. Her eyes went wide. The roar died in her throat, replaced by a sharp gasp of shock. Her arm went limp. The neural signal cut off like a severed wire. The paralysis was temporary. Seconds, maybe. But it was enough. Her weight collapsed onto me. Heavy. Fever hot. I lay there, gasping for air. Hands still jamming the nerve cluster, shaking from the adrenaline dump. From the corner, a sound emerged. I turned my head, sweat stinging my eyes. The small one was standing there. She was no longer covering her ears. She was staring at me, at the man who had thrown himself between a monster and a ghost. Her mouth open, vocal cords straining against the shape of words not designed for her throat. Thad, it was a growl, a whimper, but it was also a name. Deus, the single word hung in the sweet, poisonous air. More shocking than the violence, more profound than the silence. The mist swirled around us, but for the first time since the door had slammed shut, the darkness felt a little less absolute. The gas eventually dissipated, sucked back through the vents by automated systems designed to measure dosage, to push the inmates to the edge without killing them outright. The big one, the warrior, lay unconscious, not from the nerve strike. That had worn off within minutes, but from the fever, the infection burning through her body like wildfire. I sat against the wall. My forearm throbbed where her claw had caught me. Not deep, but bleeding. I ripped a strip from my undershirt, wrapped it tight. The small one hadn't left my side. She sat a meter away, knees pulled to her chest, watching me with those huge golden eyes. She'd spoken. One word, my name, mangled by alien vocal cords. But mine. Thaddeus, I said, tapping my chest. But most people call me Thad. She tilted her head, tried again. Thad. Better. Clearer. I looked at her, at the glove clutched in her hands like a security blanket. You got a name? She didn't answer, just stared. I looked at the big one, at the way her chest rose and fell, ragged, hitching with every breath. If I didn't do something, she'd be dead by morning. I crawled over, slowly, telegraphing every movement. The small one watched, didn't stop me. Up close, the wound was worse than I'd thought. The flesh around it was hot, swollen, angry red lines radiating outward. Sepsis, blood poisoning, spreading, and deep inside I could feel something. Hard, jagged, foreign, shrapnel. Okay, I breathed. This is going to hurt you more than it hurts me, which is a cliché, but accurate. I took the titanium strip from my boot, the one used to reinforce the ankle support. Crude, but one edge was jagged enough. I held it up to the light. The small one tensed. It looked like a weapon, like I was about to kill the warrior. I needed to show her. I rolled up my left sleeve, revealed the fresh scratch, took the vial of antiseptic, poured it on my own wound. The sting was immediate, vicious. I hissed through my teeth. See, I looked at the small one. Medicine, pain, then better, not a weapon. I poured antiseptic over the metal strip, then looked at the unconscious warrior. All right, let's see if I remember my field medic training. The procedure took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of tactile nightmare. Parting tough alien skin, blood and pus welling up, digging with my fingers to find the foreign object. The warrior whimpered in her unconscious state. Her legs kicked reflexively. I had to lean my weight across her hips to keep her still. Almost there, come on. My fingertips brushed something hard, jagged, buried deep near the rib cage. I hooked the metal strip under it, leveraged, pulled. It came free with a wet sucking sound, a twisted piece of black polymer, armor fragment driven in by an explosion. Got you. I flushed the wound with the remaining water, slapped the bioadhesive bandage over it, the edges sealed with a hiss of activated gel. Temporary, but it bought time. I sat back, hands shaking, chest heaving, lightheaded from exertion. I looked over at the small one. She'd watched the whole thing, watched me cut, dig, extract, seal. She looked at the bloody piece of polymer on the floor, at the bandage on the warrior's side, at my blood-stained hands. For a moment, we just existed in shared silence, bound by the universal language of pain and relief. Hours passed, maybe days. Time in the ark was fluid, unmarked by sun or clock, only the rhythmic thrum of engines, and the gnawing emptiness in my stomach. I dozed, fitful, dreamless. I woke to movement. The warrior was awake, trying to push herself up. Her claws scraped against the floor, trembling, but the fever had broken, or at least retreated. Easy, I said, kept my voice low, didn't approach. You lost a lot of blood. She froze at my voice. Her head snapped toward me, eyes narrowed. sharp, intelligent. She looked down at her side, touched the strange, smooth surface of the biobandage, sniffed it. Her nose wrinkled at the antiseptic smell. Then she looked at the bloody shard of polymer lying nearby. She pieced it together in seconds. She looked at me. "You call," she rasped. Her voice was grinding stones, deep, resonant, painful to produce. "Why?" "I told you I don't like the smell of gangrene. Bad for morale." She stared, tried to stand. Her legs wobbled, but she forced herself upright through sheer will, swayed, leaned against the bulkhead. "You had a knife," she said, nodded toward the metal strip I'd cleaned and set on my knee. "You could have ended it. A throat cut is cleaner than this." "I'm not a butcher," I said. "I'm a mechanic. I fix things." Her lip curled, revealing the tip of a fang. "Feral," she spat the word. "Is that what you see?" "It's what the guards called you." I was thinking something else. Silver, maybe, for the way you look under these lights, or shadow since you blend into the walls. She stared at me like I'd just suggested we dance a waltz. Utter bafflement mixed with disdain. "Do not name me human. I am not a pet." She took a breath, winced as her ribs expanded. She looked toward the small one, who was curled up in the corner asleep. She pointed a claw. "Lyric," then thumped her own chest with a closed fist. "Kira." Not friendship, not trust, just identification. "This is mine. That is a rifle. I am Kira." I tapped my own chest. "Thaddeus Crow. Most call me Thad." Kira held my gaze, assessing, finally gave a single curt nod. The truce was acknowledged. Not signed, not celebrated, but acknowledged. Suddenly the silence shattered. The speaker grill, set high into the wall, crackled to life. A voice poured through, smooth, cultured, dripping with synthetic warmth that made my skin crawl. "Attention esteemed guests and biological components. I trust you are settling into your accommodations." The voice paused, chuckled. "I have been monitoring the biometric feeds. Fascinating. Truly fascinating. The adrenaline spikes, the cortisol levels. You are painting quite the masterpiece of stress down there." I stood, walked to the center of the room, stared at the speaker. "If you want a show, buy a ticket. Let us out." The voice Dr. Ethan Crow, according to the guards, chuckled again. "But you are exactly where you need to be. The arc requires motivation. It requires a bond forged in fire." The light shifted, yellow to harsh combat red. "The pairing performance will commence in 12 hours. Only pairs that demonstrate true resonance will be granted access to the upper lattice. And more importantly, only they will be granted the hydration reward." I looked at the water dispenser in the corner. The small indicator light blinked once, turned dead black. "Effective immediately." Dr. Crow's voice hardened. "Rations are suspended. Hunger makes the mind sharp. Thirst makes the will pliable." A pause. "Learn to be one, or die as three separate corpses. The veil storm waits for no one." The speaker clicked off. The silence that returned was different. Not heavy, hollow. The sound of a clock ticking down in an empty room. I walked to the dispenser, pressed the button. Nothing. Not even a hiss. "He's starving us," I said. Kira slid down the wall, exhausted. "He's breaking us. It's the curator's way. He believes the only bond strong enough to steer this ship is a bond of desperation." "You know him?" "I know his type." She looked at her hands, claws retracted, shaking slightly. "He thinks he's a god because he holds the keys to the cage." I sat opposite her, keeping distance, respect. "I used to work salvage," I said. "Deep space wrecks. The kind where the distress beacon's been beeping for 50 years. I'd go in, cut the through bulkheads, find the crew." I paused. "Usually they were long gone, but sometimes you find the ones who survived by doing things they could never forget. I saw what happens when people let the survival part eat the human part. They survive. Yeah, but they don't live. They just become mechanisms." I looked up at her. I promised myself I'd never do that. Never let the math of survival subtract the decency out of me. Kira listened. For the first time, her ears perked forward. fully attentive, not looking at prey or threat, looking at another person carrying a heavy load. I was a shield bearer, she said softly, for my matriarch, Seraphine. When the Veil storm hit our convoy, we were separated. My job was simple: be the wall between her and the void. She traced the edge of the bandage. We were ambushed. Scavengers. Sonic charges. I was disoriented. I fell. When I woke, the matriarch was gone, and I was in chains. Her voice cracked. I didn't die for her. I lived. That is my crime. That's not a crime, I said firmly. That's bad luck. For a fairy shield bearer, there is no difference. From the corner, a soft sound. We both turned. Lyric was awake. She crawled toward us, sat between Kira and me, watching my chest. The rise and fall. She took a breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Held it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Released. 1, 2, 3, 4. She was mimicking my breathing. The 4-count rhythm. Anchoring. She hears the chaos, Kira said quietly. The Veil storm speaks to her too loudly. The songs of stars, they scream. She needs rhythm to drown them out. Lyric shifted closer to me. Didn't touch, but leaned in, ear tilting toward my chest, catching the sound of my respiration. I looked at Kira, at Lyric, at the cell walls with their faint, pulsing glow. The arc, I said. The walls pulse with rhythm. Maybe she hears that too. Maybe, Kira said, or maybe she just hears the only thing in this room that isn't trying to kill her. We sat in silence, the three of us, exhausted, wounded, afraid, but no longer alone. Above us, the lights flickered. The ship groaned. The Veil storm pressed closer. And somewhere in the darkness, Dr. Ethan Crow watched, waiting, hoping. This time let them choose. The decision to break out wasn't made in a moment of heroic inspiration. It was made in the long, cold hours before what the guards called the performance. Kira had fallen into an uneasy sleep, her back against the wall, one hand resting on the bandage, protecting it even in unconsciousness. Lyric was curled against her side, the stolen glove still clutched to her chest. And I sat, thinking, calculating. The water dispenser was dead. We had maybe 18 hours before dehydration became critical, 24 before it became fatal. The Ark's atmospheric recyclers were working, but barely. The air tasted stale, metallic. Each breath felt like it cost something. I looked at the door, the magnetic locks. The control panel beside it dead and dark. Then I looked at the floor, at the seams where the plating met, at the exposed circuitry beneath the reclamation unit. A plan formed, crude, desperate, probably suicidal, but better than waiting to die of thirst while some lunatic curator watched on his monitors. I pulled the titanium strip from my boot again, started working on the floor panel. The metal groaned as I pried it up. Kira's eyes snapped open, hand going to her side, ready to fight. Easy, I whispered, just looking for an exit. She watched me, didn't interfere. After a moment she nodded, went back to her vigil over Lyric. Beneath the panel I found what I was looking for. Power conduits, magnetic lock relays, a mess of wiring that probably violated every safety code in the colonial fleet. Perfect. I spent 6 hours working in silence, stripping insulation with my teeth, bridging connections, creating a feedback loop that would, if I'd calculated correctly, send a voltage spike back through the lock system or electrocute me, 50-50 odds. When I was done, I looked at Kira. When I do this, it's going to be loud and fast. You need to be ready. She stood, despite the wound, despite the fever still simmering behind her eyes. I am always ready. I jammed the final connection into place with the heel of my boot. Crack, zat. Blue sparks erupted. The surge didn't just short the door, it cascaded through the power grid, lighting up conduits I hadn't even known were there. 1, 2, 3. The magnetic bolts retracted. The door hissed open, and in the distance I heard it, a symphony of the same sound, echoing down corridors. Clunk hiss, clunk hiss, clunk hiss. 200 cells, opening simultaneously. Kira's eyes widened. You freed them all. Chaos, I said, is the best camouflage. We stepped into madness. The corridor was a river of bodies, humans, hexapods with crystalline carapaces that refracted the emergency lights, reptilians whose scales shifted color with their emotions, insectoids whose chitinous armor clicked and rattled as they surged forward. Some fought the automated drones that dropped from ceiling hatches. Others fought each other. Old grudges, species hatred, the desperation of the caged finally given room to move. A drone screamed past my head. I ducked, felt the heat of its propulsion system singe my hair, then a blur of obsidian fur. Kira launched herself, not at me, at the drone. I'd seen soldiers before, trained killers who moved with purpose and precision. But this was different. This was art. She twisted midair, used a prisoner's shoulder as a springboard, grabbed the drone with both hands. Her claws sank into the chassis like it was butter. Sparks flew. The drone's logic core came free in a spray of hydraulic fluid and shattered circuitry. She landed. Didn't even look back. Just moved forward, clearing the path. "Stay close," she growled. Lyric pressed against my side, shaking. The noise, the screaming, the weapons fire, the grinding of metal was overwhelming her. I felt her hands grab my jacket. Tight, desperate. "I've got you," I said. Placed my hand on her head, between her ears, gentle. We moved as a unit, me in the middle, Kira ahead, Lyric behind, a strange improvised formation that somehow worked. Mechanic, a voice, deep, commanding, cut through the chaos like a blade. A man emerged from the mob, big, easily 6'5", cybernetic leg gleaming under the emergency lights. Prison modification. Crude but functional. He was using a detached bunk rail as a weapon, swinging it like a quarterstaff. A drone exploded against the wall beside him. "You did this," he grinned, teeth filed to points. Another prison mod. "I'm Garrison Wolf, and I'm with you." "We're going to the core," I shouted over the noise. "We're cutting the Garrison laughed. A sound like a landslide. "Better than dying in a cage." Prisoners wedge formation. "We're clearing a path." They rallied, not out of loyalty, out of desperation. The magnetic pull of a plan when surrounded by chaos. Another figure darted from the crowd, scrawny, wearing a jumpsuit 3 sizes too big, wild hair that looked like it had been cut with broken glass. "You're the guy with the cat ladies." He grabbed my arm, eyes darting, manic energy. "I'm Silas Webb, theft, petty larceny, in 1 count of accidental orbital bombardment." I stared. "It was a very big button," Silas babbled, "and it was red. Who makes a button red if you're not supposed to push it?" "Is she going to eat me?" He looked at Kira with pure terror. "She looks like she eats people. I'm high in cholesterol, bad for the heart." "She might," I said, pushing him behind me, "if you don't stop talking." A panel in the wall popped open. Pneumatic hiss. A head emerged, pale, hairless. Large, multifaceted eyes that blinked independently, like a fly's eyes, but intelligent, calculating. 4 arms, 2 holding copper wire, 2 holding tools I didn't recognize. "Inefficient," the creature buzzed, its voice synthesized. "Mechanical." Shorting the ground loop caused 19% drop in life support efficiency for this sector. Sloppy work. "I was in a hurry," I defended. The creature pulled itself out of the hatch. Technician's harness, tools strapped to each limb, moving with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime in zero-G maintenance. "I am Prism, systems engineer 3rd class, incarcerated for optimizing the curator's personal shuttle without permission." Optimizing, it went faster. Prism shrugged with all 4 shoulders. Then it exploded, but for 3 seconds, very fast. Despite everything, I smiled. "Can you get us to the song core?" The maintenance substrata. Prism's eyes whirled, processing. "Thermal levels are high, but security density is low. I can guide you." "Then you're with us." We moved through the tunnels, Garrison's makeshift army forming a wedge, clearing drones, pushing deeper into the Ark's bowels. We'd barely made it 50 meters when Prism froze. All 4 hands flew to the comm unit strapped to her thorax. "Signal," she buzzed, voice dropping half an octave. "Ufibum." Concern. "Encrypted, fairy military frequency." Kira's entire body went rigid, every muscle tensing. "Play it!" The static crackled, loud in the narrow corridor. Then a voice, female, commanding, cutting through the interference like a blade through flesh. "This is Matriarch Seraphine of the ferry cruiser Talon, broadcasting on all available channels. We are searching for shieldbearer Kira, last confirmed position, Lattice Arc vicinity. If you receive this transmission, acknowledge immediately. Repeat, Kira, if you can hear this, we are coming for you." The recording looped, repeated, each word a hammer blow. I watched Kira's face, saw hope flare like a struck match, then guilt, dark and suffocating, then something that looked like grief mixed with longing. "Your matriarch," I said quietly, "the one you thought was dead." "She survived," Kira whispered. Her hand went to her side, the bandaged wound, as if the physical pain could anchor her against the emotional storm. While I was in chains, while I was failing, she was fighting, searching. She looked at Lyric, then at me, her amber eyes wide, desperate, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. "Kira, she is coming for me." Her voice cracked, broke. "She will expect her shield bearer to return, to resume duty, to take her place at the matriarch's side as if nothing happened." She turned away, couldn't meet my eyes. "What if I do not want to go back?" The question hung in the recycled air, heavy, terrifying, a confession she hadn't meant to make. Before I could answer, before I could even process what she'd said, the transmission cut out, replaced by Dr. Crow's voice over the ARC's PA system. Smooth, mocking. "Touching," he sneered, "but your rescue party is 3 days away. Minimum. You'll be dead long before then, dehydrated, starved, torn apart by my little performance. Unless you submit to the bond I've prepared for you." A pause, then softer, almost gentle. "The choice has always been yours, Kira. Return to duty, or embrace what you're becoming." The speaker clicked off. Kira's hand found mine, squeezed, not seeking comfort, seeking anchor, grounding herself in something real and present. "Then we have 3 days to survive," she said, voice steadying, hardening. "Let's not waste them talking." She pulled away, moved forward, but I saw the tremor in her shoulders, the weight she was carrying, and I made a silent promise. Whatever happened, whatever choice she made, I wouldn't make it for her. The maintenance substrata was hell made manifest. Temperature spiked 40 degrees within the first 100 meters. The air thick with ozone and the acrid smell of superheated coolant. My shirt was soaked through within minutes. Sweat stinging my eyes. Pipes groaned, hissed, dripped condensation that sizzled when it hit the deck plates. Some of the droplets left scorch marks. "Why is it so hot?" Silas wheezed, his face red, gasping. "The Veil Storm," Prism replied, scuttling along the wall like a spider, her feet finding purchase on vertical surfaces. "The Arc is diverting power to structural integrity fields. Cooling systems are secondary priority. If shields fail, we will not roast slowly. We will simply cease to exist, biologically." "That's comforting," I muttered. Wiped sweat from my forehead, but the heat wasn't the worst part. It was the sound. Down here, the vibration I'd felt in the cell was a roar, a constant, oscillating hum that seemed to have melody, rhythm, purpose. Whom thrum, whom thrum, whom thrum. It wasn't just mechanical noise. It was data, the ship talking to itself, broadcasting status updates, error codes, warnings, all compressed into sound waves that resonated through metal and flesh. And Lyric was suffering. She walked with both hands pressed tight over her ears, eyes squeezed shut, guided only by Kira's hand on her shoulder, trusting completely. Blind faith. Every few steps she'd stumble, whimper, a high keening sound that cut through even the roar of the engines. Pain made audible. "It hurts her," Kira said, her voice tight with worry, with helplessness. "The song. It's too loud, too many frequencies." I watched Lyric, saw the way her whole body trembled. Not from fear now, from sensory overload, like standing next to a jet engine, feeling it in your bones, your teeth, your soul. It's not just a song, I realized. looked at the pulsing lights along the conduits, binary patterns, fractal geometry. It's raw code, uncompressed data. The whole ship is broadcasting, trying to maintain cohesion against the storm. I watched the lights pulse, tried to see the pattern, the language. She hears it all. Every system, every failure, every scream for help from stressed bulkheads and dying circuits. Lyric stumbled again, nearly fell. Kira caught her, but the larger ferry's own hands were shaking. The fever, the wound, the exertion. It was taking its toll. I stopped, dug into my pocket, found the dense foam packing material I'd stripped from a destroyed drone earlier, the stuff they used to cushion delicate electronics during transport, tore it into two pieces. Lyric. She opened one eye, looked at me with such pain it made my chest physically ache, like someone had reached in and squeezed. Earplugs, I said gently, held them up. It won't stop it, but it'll muffle the high frequencies, the ones that hurt most. I knelt, brought myself to her level, non-threatening, patient. She flinched, but didn't pull away, trusted me not to hurt her. Slowly, carefully, I placed the foam into her ears, the sensitive, tufted ears that twitched at every sound, that could hear frequencies humans couldn't even imagine. The change was immediate, miraculous. Her shoulders dropped. The trembling eased, not gone, but manageable, bearable. She opened both eyes, looked at me, and did something I hadn't seen before. She smiled, just a flash, a brief upward curve of her mouth, but it was there, real, beautiful. Then she reached out, placed one small hand flat against my chest, right over my heart, checking the rhythm, making sure it was still there, still steady, thump, 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 thump. She nodded, satisfied, let her hand drop, but the way she looked at me had changed, not just gratitude, something deeper, trust, the kind you can't fake or force, only earn. Kira was watching, something in her expression I couldn't read. Respect maybe, or wonder. That a human, a species she'd been taught to see as lesser, weaker, temporary, would show such care for a child not his own, not even his species. Keep moving, she said, but her voice was softer, warmer, like I'd passed some test I hadn't known I was taking. We reached a junction, where three corridors met. A large holographic emitter suspended from the ceiling flickered to life, blocking our path with a wall of blue light. The face that appeared was 3 meters tall, smooth, digitally enhanced to perfect symmetry. Dr. Ethan Crow. He sat in a high-backed chair, swirling clear liquid in a crystal glass. The picture of civilized comfort, a stark contrast to our sweating, bleeding desperation. Impressive, his voice boomed, echoed off the metal walls. Most rats simply run for the nearest hole. You seem intent on climbing up the pantry shelf. Admirable, futile, but admirable. Our group halted. Garrison raised his makeshift weapon. But you can't hit a hologram. Can't hurt light. Open the blast doors, I said. Stepped forward, tried to keep my voice steady. The veil storm is tearing the hull plating. I can hear the stress fractures. You're not saving the ship. You are cooking it slowly. Dr. Crow smiled, cold, empty, like a smile painted on a corpse. The arc requires unity, Thaddeus. It requires singular will, synchronized purpose. You are creating dissonance, chaos, entropy. He leaned forward, the hologram looming. Oppressive. Turn back, return to your cells. I will offer a deal. You, the ferry, your eclectic collection of misfits, full rations, water, medical attention, guaranteed positions on the bridge when we successfully cross the veil. A pause, calculated, theatrical. All you have to do is accept the resonance. Submit to the bond I have prepared for you. Kira snarled, low, dangerous, a sound that made prisoners step back. We do not submit. Dr. Crow's eyes shifted to her, studied her, like a specimen under glass. You are delaying the inevitable shield bearer. I can vent this tunnel into hard vacuum in 30 seconds. Explosive decompression. Painful. Final. I am offering mercy, compassion, a way out. I looked at the projection, at the confident tilt of his head, at the way his fingers drummed against the glass. Nervous, a tell, a crack in the facade. You're not offering mercy, I said, voice cutting through the tunnel's hum. You're scared. His smile twitched. Barely, but I saw it. You're watching the sensors, I continued, pointed at the flickering edges of the hologram. Unstable. The Ark isn't responding to you anymore. Not the way it should. You're forcing the controls, but the ship is fighting back, rejecting your commands. I stepped through the hologram, disrupting the light, scattering his face into pixels and static. You need us. You need the bond, because you don't have one. You're alone in that tower, just you and your fear and your failing ship. The image reformed behind me, but Dr. Crow was no longer smiling. His face was tight, angry. I don't need your resonance, I said to the empty air, to the cameras I knew were watching. And I don't need your rations. I need an audience, and I'm coming to your stage. I waved the group forward. Prism, how far? 200 meters, the engineer buzzed. Vertical climb, the song core is directly above the main reactor linkage, shielded, secure, defended. Then let's go introduce ourselves. The climb was agony personified. The ladder was slick with condensation and old lubricant. My hands burned, blisters forming and popping, shoulders screaming with lactic acid buildup. By the time we reached the access hatch to the song core, I was shaking, vision swimming. Kira's bandage was soaked through, fresh blood mixing with old. But she kept moving, jaw set, eyes forward, refusing to show weakness. "We'll hold here," Garrison shouted from below, his voice echoing up the shaft. "Any drones come up this pipe, we'll turn them into scrap metal and spare parts." 5 minutes, I called back. "Give us 5 minutes." I spun the wheel on the hatch, tried to turn it, couldn't, locked tight. Kira moved beside me, placed her hands next to mine. Together, our combined strength barely enough to break the seal. The wheel groaned, protested, then gave. Metal screamed, complaining. Then the hatch popped open with a hiss of equalized pressure. Light flooded out, not harsh white, not amber emergency. This was soft, pulsating, bioluminescent blue. We pulled ourselves up into the room. I stopped, breath catching in my throat. The song core was a cathedral. The room was spherical, maybe 50 meters in diameter, lined with thousands of crystalline rods stretching from floor to ceiling. They hummed, vibrated with the ship's energy, each one glowing with that soft blue light, pulsing in waves like a heartbeat made visible, made beautiful. In the center, a console, but it looked more like a musical instrument, an organ, glass and light and flowing data. Streams of information moving through the air like liquid mercury, fractal patterns dancing, shifting, alive. "It's beautiful," Silas whispered. For once, genuine awe replaced his nervous energy, his manic chatter silenced by wonder. "It's a target," Kira corrected, her eyes scanning the periphery, always tactical, always ready. And she was right. From the shadows between the crystalline pillars they emerged. Dr. Crow's elite guard, not drones, biological, enhanced, armored in sleek white ceramic plates that looked grown rather than manufactured, wielding shock pikes that crackled with contained lightning. 8 of them, maybe 10, hard to count in the shifting light. "For the Ark," the lead guard shouted, voice distorted by helmet speakers. "For the curator's vision," Kira moved, despite the wound, despite the fever that must have been burning through her blood like fire through dry wood. She was magnificent. She flowed through the field of crystal rods like water, like smoke, using the environment. A pike thrust came at her chest. She twisted, let it pass so close it cut fabric, grabbed the guard's wrist, used his own momentum to slam him face first into a pillar. Crystal shattered, beautiful and terrible. The guard dropped, unconscious or dead. Didn't matter which, but there were more. 6, 8, closing in from multiple angles. "Kira," I yelled. Saw her slowing it. "Fall back. I don't abandon." She roared, kicked a guard in the chest with both feet, sent him flying backward, crashed into 2 others. Dominoes. But she was slowing. I could see it. The way her movements were a fraction too delayed. The way she favored her wounded side, protecting it, compensating. A shock pike grazed her leg. She stumbled, caught herself on a crystal rod, but barely. "Prism, keep them off me," I shouted, ran for the console. "Silas, throw something." "Throw what?" Silas shrieked. Genuine panic. My dignity, my self-respect. I left those in Block 7, but he grabbed a loose piece of conduit, hurled it at a guard aiming a suppressor rifle at my back. Missed by a meter. But the guard flinched, ducked, lost his shot, long enough for Lyric to dart in. She didn't fight, not directly. She screamed, a sonic pulse, pure fairy ability I hadn't seen before. Not loud in the traditional sense, but pitched perfectly, a frequency that shattered concentration, made ears bleed inside helmets, made vision swim and balance fail. The guards stumbled, clutching helmets, disoriented, vulnerable. I reached the console. The surface was smooth, undulating, light rippling under my fingers like water disturbed by wind. No buttons, no joysticks, no familiar controls. "How do I fly this thing?" I muttered. Placed my hands flat. "You don't fly it," Prism called. She was firing a stolen drone pistol, energy bolts slamming into guards. "You play it." The song core responds to biological rhythm, to resonance, to the harmony of living systems. I placed both hands flat on the surface, skin to light, zing. The reaction was instantaneous, violent, overwhelming. Light shot up my arms, into my veins, turning them glowing blue beneath the skin like bioluminescent rivers. I gasped. My back arched. Not pain, not exactly. Connection. Complete and total connection. I felt everything. The whole plate's 3 kilometers away, groaning, flexing, micro fractures spreading like spider webs. The air cycling through the hydroponics bay, oxygen levels dropping, the drones swarming in the lower levels, following attack patterns, the water locked in the dispensers, hundreds of liters, withheld, weaponized, the gas still ready in the vents, waiting, dormant, dangerous. And I felt the pheromone system, a red, angry knot in the ship's nervous system, pulsing with the malicious intent. "Turn it off," I gritted through clenched teeth, muscles straining. "Come on, turn it off." The machine resisted, fought me, locked by Dr. Crow's command codes, deep in the firmware, encrypted, protected. It felt like trying to push open a door held by a giant. My muscles strained, vision blurred, sweat poured down my face, mixed with blood from a cut I didn't remember getting. "I can't," my voice cracked. "I need." A hand landed on my shoulder, hot, strong, claws carefully retracted so they wouldn't pierce skin. "Kira, use my strength," she said, simple, absolute. Then a smaller hand. On my back, lower spine, gentle but present, Lyric. And the world exploded with sound. Not noise, not chaos, rhythm. 3 heartbeats crashing into my awareness like physical blows, like percussion, like drums declaring war. Thump, thump, mine, steady, mechanical. The 4 count I'd learned in rescuer training, precise, reliable. Thump, thump, Kira's, powerful. Each beat like a war drum, like a call to battle. Warrior's precision, warrior's strength. Thump, 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 lyrics, rapid, child's metabolism, hope made audible, future made present. They didn't sync. That would have been too simple, too predictable. They syncopated, created a jazz-like polyrhythm, complex, layered, beautiful in its imperfection. The console flared white, blinding. I couldn't see, could only feel. The resistance vanished, dissolved like sugar in water. I pushed my will into the machine, into every system, every circuit, every valve. Stop the gas. Throughout the ship, in every corridor and cell and habitation module, the vents hissed, one last time, releasing the residual pressure, then fell silent, permanently offline. The red knot on my internal map, the one I could somehow see with my mind's eye, dissolved, unraveled like thread pulled from a tapestry. "We did it," Silas cheered from behind a pillar. "We didn't die. I'm going to leave such a positive review on—" The ship lurched, not gravity failure, not a malfunction, a turn, deliberate, violent, unnatural. The floor tilted 20 degrees. I slid, lost my grip on the console. Kira caught me before I fell, but she was sliding too. We all were. "What was that?" Garrison's voice crackled over the makeshift comm Prism had rigged. Static heavy. "The stars just moved sideways. What's happening up there?" Prism scrambled to a sensor readout, all four eyes whirling frantically. Processing, calculating, coming to a terrible conclusion. "Warning." Her voice dropped an octave. "Pure fear. Automated navigation has disengaged, but the proximity alarm is triggered. Critical level." "Proximity to what?" I asked. Pulled myself up using Kira for support. Prism pointed to the main view screen, the one dominating the upper dome of the room. Blast shields were retracting, slowly, revealing the view outside. Space was not black, it was churning, violet. Ribbons of energy the size of planetary systems whipping against the Ark's shields like tentacles, like fingers grasping. The veil storm, not approaching on some distant vector. We were diving straight into it, accelerating. "Impact in 5 minutes," Prism said, her voice flat, shock. "We're not turning away from the anomaly. We're entering it at maximum velocity." I stared. Understanding crashed down like a collapsing ceiling. "Dr. Crow," I said slowly, each word heavy. "He didn't need the gas to kill us. He just needed to keep us busy." Kira's eyes widened, horror and rage mixing, while he aimed the ship at the grave. The Songcor's alarms began to scream. Red lights, claxons, the universal sound of imminent death, of systems giving up, of the end approaching fast. We'd won the battle for the Yam, but the war for the ship had just begun. 18 hours after the jailbreak, the evacuation to the hydroponics bay was organized chaos. Garrison's people moving prisoners through corridors, supporting the wounded, carrying children. Even in crisis, even facing death, something resembling order, something resembling humanity. The bay was a savior, where the rest of the ship was metal and recycled despair. This was green, living, the ceiling 50 feet high, lined with UV grow lights that cast everything in perpetual twilight. Like eternal dusk, automated gardens had been taken over, transformed, turned into a refugee camp. Hammock tents strung between support beams, makeshift triage centers under broad-leafed plants that shouldn't exist this far from Earth. 300 people, different species, different crimes, different reasons for being here, all looking at me like I had answers. I didn't. Emergency council formed in the center. A cleared circle surrounded by tall stalks of alien corn, the kind that grew in low gravity, all stem and minimal fruit. Garrison stood, arms crossed, face grim. "We take the escape pods, launch in cluster formation, fire every decoy we have. 50% might make it clear of the storm. Maybe more if we're lucky." "And the other 50, I asked, voice quiet but carrying. "The wounded, the children, the ones whose physiology can't handle the G-force of an emergency launch." "Better half survive than all die," someone shouted from the back. Desperate logic. Survival math. "The pods are blind in the storm," Prism interjected. "Manipulating a holographic projection, showing trajectories, collision probabilities. Navigational sensors too basic, designed for line-of-sight navigation only. In the Veil storm, they'll be flying blind through debris fields and spatial distortions. Collision probability, 90%. Survival probability, near zero." "So we stay on this coffin," Garrison slammed his fist into his palm. Frustration, fear masked as anger. "The curator locked the bridge, encrypted the controls. We can't steer manually. We're just passengers on a ship diving into hell." "We don't need the bridge," I said. Quiet, but firm. Absolute. "We need the Song Core. We proved it works. We can manipulate the ship's systems through resonance, through connection. Garrison scoffed. You turned off a valve mechanic, shut down a gas system. That's different from piloting a city-sized dreadnought through a gravitational hurricane that tears space-time apart. We build the connection, I insisted. Met his eyes, refused to look away. We practice, we learn. The Ark was designed to be piloted by a bonded crew, by people working in harmony. We can be that crew. You're asking us to bet our lives on your ability to sing a lullaby to a computer. I'm asking you to bet on each other. I looked around the circle, saw scared faces, angry faces, desperate faces, faces that had given up, faces still fighting. If we take the pods, we're rats fleeing a sinking ship. We abandon the weak. We abandon the children. We abandon everything that makes us more than just survivors. Is that how you want to live? Is that who you want to be? Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Kira stepped forward, out of the shadows where she'd been standing, blood still seeping through her bandage, but standing straight, proud, unbroken. I have run before, she said, her voice carrying, reaching every corner. I ran from my duty, from my shield, from my matriarch. It did not save me. It only made the cage inside my head smaller, darker, more suffocating. She looked at Garrison, held his gaze, warrior to warrior. We stay. We fight the storm. Together. Garrison stared. At Kira. At me. At the motley collection of misfits and criminals and survivors. He spat on the ground, old habit, prison gesture, then nodded. Fine, your way, mechanic. But if the hull starts buckling, if we're all about to die, I'm putting you in a pod and firing you straight into the nearest sun myself. Despite everything, I smiled. Fair enough? 20 hours after the jailbreak, the bay quieted as the artificial night cycle began. Lights dimmed to deep bioluminescent purple, like being underwater, like being in a womb. I sat on the edge of a medical cot, unwrapping the bandage on my hand. The burns from the electrical short in the cell were healing. Slowly, skin pink and tender, new. But my hands shook, a tremor of exhaustion I couldn't suppress, couldn't control. You are shaking. I looked up. Kira stood there, holding fresh gauze. A small pot of herbal salve someone had synthesized from the garden plants. Green, smelling of mint and something sharper. Just tired, I said. Tried to steady my hand, failed. Sit. Not a request, a command, but gentle, caring. She sat opposite me on a crate, took my hand in hers, her paws rough, calloused from a lifetime of combat, of training, of duty. But her touch was gentle, deliberate, claws fully retracted. She dipped a finger into the salve, applied it to the burn, coolness spread, relief, immediate and profound. I watched her face inches from mine. I could see the intricate patterns of fur on her cheeks, individual hairs, the way her pupils adjusted to the dim light, expanding, contracting, breathing like living things. You were good today, I said softly. With the guards. You didn't kill any of them. I wanted to. She didn't look up, focused on wrapping the gauze. Precise, careful. The instinct was there, to tear, to rend, to end the threat permanently. It would have been easier. She paused, wrapped gauze around my palm, secure but not tight. But I heard your voice in my head. I'm not a butcher. And I thought perhaps I do not have to be one either. Perhaps there is another way. You're a protector, Kira. There's a difference, a choice. She finished the bandage, looked up. Our eyes met. The air between us felt charged, heavy with words neither of us knew how to say, with feelings that didn't have names yet. My thumb brushed the back of her hand, unconscious, a human gesture of comfort, of connection. She froze, looked at my thumb, then at my face, studying, trying to understand. She didn't pull away. You are strange, Thaddeus Crow, she whispered. You are soft, you break easily, no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Yet you stand in front of storms. You throw yourself at danger. You protect those weaker than yourself. I'm terrified, I admitted. Small smile, self-deprecating. just good at pretending I'm not. That is not weakness. That is... The floor buckled. The sensation was like standing on a deck when a tidal wave hits. Everything shifted. Up became sideways. Gravity pulled in impossible directions. Kira and I were thrown apart. I hit the ground hard, rolled, felt something in my ribs crack. Pain, sharp, immediate. The lights failed, plunged us into absolute darkness. Then emergency red strobes kicked in, bathing everything in blood-colored light, making shadows move, making nightmares real. "Hull breach!" Prism's voice shrieked over the comms, all four of her vocal processors screaming in harmony. "Sector 4, the Veil Storm is bleeding through reality, integrity failing." But it wasn't just a physical breach, a hole in the metal skin. The air shimmered. Colors that didn't exist, that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space, swirled in oil-slick patterns. Reality itself was distorting, bending, breaking. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. Pain, indescribable pain, like my skull was being peeled open. The hydroponics bay dissolved around me. I was underwater, cold, freezing, black water pressing in from all sides, crushing, suffocating. I was back on the Orion, the first ship I'd failed to salvage. The nightmare that lived in the locked box in the back of my mind. The one I never opened, never examined. She was there. The young woman, Sarah. I remembered her name now. Remembered everything, trapped behind the jammed airlock, water rising, centimeter by centimeter, her mouth open in a scream that made no sound through the reinforced glass. I was pounding, fists bloody, wrench useless against the pressure seal. The emergency override burned out. The manual release jammed. Open, open, open. But it wouldn't. The water was at her chin, her lips, her eyes. She looked at me, directly at me, and mouthed words I could read even through the water and the glass and the guilt. "It's okay. Not your fault." Then the water covered her face, and she stopped struggling. "I can't," I screamed into the memory, into the past, into the guilt that never faded. "I'm sorry, I can't reach you." The guilt crashed into me like a physical wave, like pressure, like drowning. I was useless, a fraud. I saved people to make up for the ones I couldn't save, but the debt was never paid, never could be paid. The ledger would always be unbalanced. The cold water filled my lungs. I was drowning. I deserved to drown. Thad, a voice, distant, muffled by water and guilt in 45 years of carrying the weight. I curled into a ball, let the cold take me, let the past consume me. It was easier than fighting, easier than remembering, easier than forgiving myself. Thaddeus, something hot, solid, undeniable, real in a way the hallucination wasn't. Arms wrapped around me, strong, furious with purpose. "Look at me." The water receded just a little. The face behind the glass faded, replaced by amber eyes, burning with intensity, with life. Kira. She was on her knees, blood streaming from her reopened wound, but she was pulling me against her chest, not gentle, forceful, using brute strength to drag me out of the nightmare, out of the past. "It is not real," she shouted, shaking me. "You are here, you are with me. You are not in the past. You are now, present, alive." I gasped, air rushing into lungs. Real air, not cold water. I was shaking violently, tears streaming down my face, mixing with sweat and blood. "I left her," I sobbed, voice breaking. "I left her behind. I watched her drown." "You are not leaving anyone today." Kira's voice fierce. Absolute. A command from a warrior who expected to be obeyed. She pulled my head down to her shoulder, buried her face in my neck, and then she began to purr. Not the soft sound of a house cat, not gentle or comforting. A deep, resonant engine rumble, vibrating through my rib cage, into my bones, into the broken parts of me that never healed right. I clung to her, fingers digging into fur, holding on like she was the only real thing in a universe of illusions. I focused on the sound, the vibration, the heat of her body against mine, the proof that this moment was real. that I was real. Slowly, organizingly, the hallucination faded. The hydroponics bay returned. Red lights stopped spinning, stabilized. I pulled back, gasping, looked at Kira. She looked terrified, not for herself, for me, like she'd almost lost something she didn't know she needed. I saw ghosts, I whispered, voice hoarse, broken. The Veilstorm shows us our failures, Kira said, her hand still gripping my arm, tight, refusing to let go. Our regrets, the things we cannot forgive ourselves for. I saw my matriarch, dying over and over, reaching for me, calling my name. I could not save her. How did you stop it? How did you come back? I didn't. She looked down. Lyric was clinging to my leg, eyes squeezed shut, humming. A single unwavering note, pure, clear, cutting through the chaos. Counter frequency, blocking the storm's chaotic signal, anchoring us both to reality. She saved both of us, Kira said quietly, with wonder, with gratitude. We sat there, the three of us, in the red light, in the chaos, connected, anchored, real. And for a moment the storm seemed a little less terrifying. The night deepened, the bay quieted. Most of the prisoners had found places to sleep, or at least rest. Exhaustion was universal. I lay on a pile of sleeping mats, staring up at the UV lights, my mind racing with calculations, with fears, with the weight of 300 lives. I felt a weight settle on my chest. Not heavy, just present. Lyric had crawled over. She didn't ask, didn't wait for permission, simply curled up on top of me, a small ball of fur and warmth and trust. She placed her head under my chin, found my heartbeat. Then Sable moved, lay down on my right side, pressing her back against my flank, her head resting on my shoulder, her arm draped across my chest, over Lyric, protective, possessive, claiming. It was heavy, hot, uncomfortable, and perfect. We're going to die tomorrow, aren't we? I whispered into the dark, into the purple light. Shut up, Thaddeus, Kira murmured, her eyes already closed. Sleep. Okay. I closed my eyes, felt Lyric begin to purr, soft, rhythmic, a lullaby. Kira joined in, deeper, stronger, a bass note beneath Lyric's melody. My heart slowed to match them, found the rhythm, thump, thump, purr, rumble, thump, thump, purr, rumble. And then something miraculous happened. The groaning of the ship stopped. The vibration in the floor plates, the constant tremor of stress and strain settled. The rattling leaves of the plants went still. The Ark, sensing the resonance, the pure, unforced harmony of three beings sleeping in a tangled pile of trust, responded. The song core, miles away in the center of the ship, picked up the rhythm, amplified it, broadcast it to the hull plating, to every system, every circuit. The ship began to hum, a counter note, a lullaby sung in metal and light. Outside, the Veilstorm raged, tearing at the shields, trying to break through. But inside the hydroponics bay, under the purple lights, beneath the broad leaves of impossible plants, there was only the sound of breathing, of three hearts finding harmony. I drifted off to sleep, pinned beneath the weight of alien warriors and children, thinking that if this was how the world ended, it wasn't a bad way to go, not bad at all. The arrival of the Veilstorm was not an event of weather. It was physics undoing itself. It began with silence. The constant subsonic thrum of the Lotus Ark's engines, a vibration that had become as familiar as our own heartbeats, suddenly vanished. For one terrifying second, the universe held its breath. Then the sky tore open. Through the view screens scattered throughout the hydroponics bay, we watched. The stars didn't merely twinkle. They screamed, elongated into infinite ribbons of violent violet and bruised gold, smearing across the void like wet paint flung at a spinning canvas. The metal of the ship began to sing, a high resonant frequency that made teeth ache and vision blur. It sounded like a billion glass bells shattering simultaneously, like reality itself was crying out in pain. Gravity shear detected. Prism's synthesized voice cut through the noise, pitched high with panic, with fear coded into digital algorithms. Hull integrity failing in sectors 4, 9, and 12. Reality coefficient dropping below 0.7. What does that mean? Silas shrieked, clutching a support beam like it might save him. Are we becoming imaginary? I don't want to be imaginary. I have mass, I have volume, I take up space. It means, I said, gripping the console, Prism had jury-rigged from spare parts and desperate hope. The past is about to start bleeding into the present. Memories, regrets, things that were, things that might have been, all of it colliding with now. Around us, prisoners began to moan, to weep, clutching their heads as visions assaulted them, seeing things that weren't there, or worse, things that had been, that would always be in the locked rooms of memory. A large reptilian inmate collapsed, weeping openly, calling out the name of a hatchling dead for 20 standard years, reaching for something only he could see. I looked at Kira. She stood frozen between two worlds, between two lives, between duty and choice. Matriarch Seraphine was here. Her ship had arrived during the night, docked in the main hangar. The Talon, sleek, powerful, fairy engineering at its finest. Seraphine stood at the bay entrance now, her hand extended, the promise of home, of duty, of absolution for past failures. And behind her, us, the broken, the desperate, the makeshift family forged in fire and fear and impossible choices. Kira, I said, quiet, but she heard me over the gate. Over the universe screaming, she turned, those amber eyes finding mine. It's your choice, I told her, meeting her gaze, refusing to look away. I won't hold you. I won't ask you to stay. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. Before she could answer, before the moment could resolve, the ship lurched violently. A piece of ceiling plating gave way, crashed down meters from where Seraphine stood. Sparks, fire, smoke. The matriarch didn't flinch, didn't move. But her warriors raised weapons, defensive positions, training overriding fear. Lyric let out a whimper, high, melodic, pure distress made audible. And I did something without thinking, pure instinct. I hummed, low, discordant, the same tune I used when fixing engines, when my hands were buried in machinery and the world narrowed to wire and circuit and purpose. It was rhythm, nothing more. No melody, no beauty. But Lyric latched onto it. Her breathing steadied. The trembling eased. She began to purr in response, matching my frequency, finding safety in the pattern. And Kira, warrior, shield-bearer, survivor, protector, she joined. Her chest rumbling with that deep defensive bass I'd come to recognize as safety, as home. The three of us created a pocket of sound, an island of rhythm in the chaos. And as we stood there breathing together, the hallway lights around us stabilized. The chaotic, strobing blue calmed to a steady pulse. The groaning metal near us quieted, stress easing. Seraphine's eyes widened. She was seeing it, the resonance field forming, visible even to the naked eye, a faint shimmer in the air around us. Not because of power, not because of technology, because we were the center of gravity for each other. Let them pass, Seraphine ordered, her voice filled with something I couldn't quite name. Respect, maybe, or fear of what we were becoming. She looked at me, at the human with no claws, no armor, no fangs, no right to command the loyalty of fairy warriors. If you fail, she said, voice hard as diamond, I will kill you before the storm takes us. A mercy, better than what the veil will do. Then she stepped aside. We ran. The entrance to the song corps was blocked, but not by guards this time, by our own people, by rage given form. A mob of prisoners had someone cornered, surrounded. Two massive inmates, one human, one something reptilian and scaled and ancient, held Dr. Ethan Crow by his arms. Pinned, helpless. His uniform was torn, face bruised, lips split, blood on his teeth. But he was laughing, a manic, broken sound that echoed off the metal walls, that spoke of minds fractured beyond repair. Kill him. A voice from the back, male, human, raw with hate. He starved us, he gassed us, he tortured us for his sick experiment. Blood for blood. Another voice, female, insectoid, clicking. Eye for eye, pain for pain. Garrison stood at the front, holding his makeshift weapon. He looked ready to let them do it. To let justice or vengeance, the line was blurry, take its course. Stop! My shout cracked through the room, through the bloodlust, through the moment before violence became inevitable. I pushed through the crowd, Kira and Lyric flanking me. Protection, support. I stood between Garrison and the curator, between the mom and their target. Get out of the way, mechanic, Garrison growled, eyes hard, hand tight on his weapon. This is justice. This is what he deserves, what we all deserve to give him. This is panic, I retorted, looked at the mob, at the anger, the fear masked as righteous fury. If we kill him now, we're just doing what he wanted. We're becoming the animals he treated us as. We're proving him right. He's a monster, Silas yelled from somewhere behind a support beam. Still hiding, still afraid. He's a sadist who enjoyed watching us suffer. Yes, I agreed, met Garrison's eyes. He is. But if I'll let you tear him apart, what happens to you? What happens to us? What do we become? I looked at Garrison, at the war in his eyes, the need for vengeance, fighting against something else, something harder, more painful, mercy. I need you to man the escape pods, I said, quiet, intense, not run a slaughterhouse. I need you to be a soldier, not an executioner. Garrison stared, his chest heaving. He looked at the blood on Dr. Crow's face, at the wrench in his own hand, at the choice before him. He lowered the weapon. Cage him, Garrison spat. Old habit, prison gesture of disgust. If we survive, he answers for it properly. Trial, justice, law. If we die, he dies with us. Fair trade. As they dragged Dr. Crow away, hands bound, feet shuffling, he leaned in. Close enough that only I could hear. Close enough that I could smell the blood on his breath. You're soft, Thaddeus, he whispered. Voice hoarse, broken. You think mercy is strength. The veil storm will burn that out of you. Will show you what you really are underneath all your noble intentions. We'll see, I said. We entered the song core, the cathedral of light and crystal, but now the rods were flickering, unstable, dying. The data streams chaotic, red, angry, screaming warnings in machine language. How long? I asked Prism, dreading the answer. Impact in 90 seconds, she buzzed, all four arms working frantically at the auxiliary console. Bypassing, rerouting, buying seconds. Veilstorm contact imminent. Shield collapse probable. Survival, uncertain. I walked to the center, to the organ of glass and light, to the interface that connected thought and machine. Kira moved to my right, her hand already reaching for my shoulder, knowing what was needed. Lyric to my left, small hands finding my lower back. Trusting, believing. Ready? I asked. Knowing the answer, fearing it anyway. They didn't answer, didn't need to. Their presence was answer enough. I placed my hands on the console. Connection. The white fire hit like a supernova, like the birth of stars, like the death of universes. The world dissolved. No room, no ship, no body, only light. Blinding, burning, pure and terrible, and absolute. The Veilstorm didn't just attack the hull, didn't just threaten the ship, it attacked the mind. The soul, the deepest parts of ourselves we kept hidden. It sought out the cracks in the psyche, the fault lines, the places where we were broken, and it pried them open with a crowbar made of cold starlight and terrible truth. I was standing on a bridge, pristine, gleaming white and gold like something from a dream, like something impossible. I wore a uniform I'd never owned, captain's insignia. My hands were clean, unmarked, no grease, no scars, no proof of work or struggle or failure. Below on the view screen, a planet was burning, atmosphere on fire, cities glowing like embers, billions dying as I watched. It was necessary. I turned. Standing next to me was another version of myself, older, harder. The warmth bled from his eyes and replaced with cold mathematics, with survival calculus, with the logic of triage applied to worlds. We had to cut the weight, Mirithad said. His voice was my voice, but empty, hollow, dead. To save the Ark, we jettisoned the cargo. Made the hard choice. The only choice. I looked at the manifest displayed on the console. Names scrolling past, hundreds, thousands. Garrison, Silas, Prism, the reptilian inmates, the insectoids, the humans who'd trusted me, who'd believed. And at the bottom in red letters that burned Kira, Lyric, status jettisoned, deceased, acceptable losses. My stomach dropped. The world tilted. No, I whispered. I wouldn't. I didn't. You did the math, Thaddeus. You always do the math. Always calculate. Always weigh. 1 life for 1,000. 10 lives for 10,000. It's simple arithmetic. Cold. Clean. Logical. I looked down. At my feet, Lyric lay motionless. Eyes open but unseeing. Staring at nothing. At the stars she'd never hear again. Did I do this? You survived, Mirror, Thad smiled. A corpse's smile, a skull's grin. Isn't that the point? Isn't that what you've always done, survive while others die? Around us, the bridge began to decay. Rust spreading across white metal like cancer, like rot. The ship groaning, failing, and from the walls, faces emerged. Everyone I'd failed to save. The woman behind the airlock, Sarah. The crew of the Orion. 17 names I still remembered. Now Kira, Lyric, all of them reaching for me with accusing hands, with questions I couldn't answer. You kill everything you touch, they whispered. Chorus of the dead, symphony of failure, survivor, fraud, coward. You let us die so you could live. The cold rushed in. Absolute zero, the temperature of space, of death. I fell to my knees. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I tried. I always try. It's never enough. Thad, a voice. Real, cutting through the illusion like a blade through tissue paper. Like truth cutting through lies. I'm afraid, I screamed, my eyes squeezed shut, tears streaming, hot against frozen cheeks. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things, but I'm the one who's broken. I'm scared of failing you. Scared of watching you, scared of being alone again. The admission shattered something. The mirror version of me flickered, cracked like glass, like ice, like lies exposed to truth. I'm not a captain, I sobbed, voice raw, broken, honest. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who fixes broken things. And I'm terrified, absolutely terrified, that I'm the one who can't be fixed. That I'm the problem. That everyone I touch dies because of buying. A hand tightened on my shoulder, hot, real, solid, undeniable. Then be broken. Kira's voice, fierce, furious with love and purpose in absolute conviction. We are all broken, Thaddeus, every single one of us. That is how the pieces fit together, the cracks, the damaged parts. They interlock. They create something stronger than perfection ever could. I felt her press her forehead to the back of my neck. Felt her breath, her heartbeat through armor and fur and skin. Real, present, alive. I am a killer, she confessed, her voice shaking, vulnerable, honest. I have taken lives, many lives. But I choose not to kill you. I choose to hold you, to protect you, to stand beside you. That is my choice, my decision. Not duty, not obligation. Choice, Watu. And then, from somewhere deeper, from somewhere pure and innocent and absolutely certain, Lyric was humming. The same lullaby I'd hummed in the tunnels, when she was in pain, when the world was too loud, clumsy, off-key, imperfect, but pure, unmistakable. A lighthouse beam cutting through fog, through lies, through fear. I opened my eyes. The white fire receded. The bridge, the burning planet, the accusing faces, all of it dissolved like smoke, like dreams, like the lies we tell ourselves. I saw the data streams of the Ark, still chaotic, red knots of turbulence twisting through the ship's systems like cancers, like infections. Kira, I said, voice steadying, finding strength. I need your anger, your strength, your absolute refusal to give up. Be the engine. I am the engine, she growled, and I felt her adrenaline pour into the connection. Raw, Powerful. A warrior's heart unleashed. Fury and love and determination made tangible. Lyric, I whispered. Be the rudder. Keep the beat. Guide us home. She purred louder, a sonic frequency that rippled through the console, through the ship, through reality itself, stabilizing, harmonizing, creating order from chaos. And I said, gripping the controls with hands that shook but held firm, will be the hands, the bridge, the connection. I didn't fight the storm. That was impossible. Suicide. You don't fight a hurricane, you don't punch gravity, you don't argue with physics, you find the current. You understand the pattern. You surf the edge between destruction and salvation. I was a salvage operator. I knew wrecks, knew how debris drifted in zero-G, knew how to read the invisible rivers of momentum and force, knew how to find the path through chaos. Turning, I announced, voice carrying over the comms to every part of the ship. Hard to port, into the sheer, into the storm itself. Into it, Seraphine's voice crackled, panicked, disbelieving. You'll tear us apart. The fusses will rip the hull plating from the superstructure. Trust the bond, I shouted back. Trust the resonance, trust us. I shoved the virtual controls forward. The arc groaned, the entire structure twisted. Metal screaming reached a crescendo that made ears bleed. That made hearts stop. And then silence. Not absence of sound, but harmony. Resonance, the ship slipped into the slipstream. The eye of the storm, the calm at the center of chaos. We weren't fighting the waves anymore. We were surfing them, dancing with them, becoming part of the pattern. The three-person harmonic human precision, fairy strength child's hope created a shield, bent reality around us, deflected the memory distortion waves, made the impossible possible. The stars outside stopped screaming, blurred into streaks of light. Beautiful, terrible, sublime. Clear, Prism announced, her voice filled with awe, with wonder. We've broken through. We're in open space, stable velocity, no pursuit vectors, shields holding at 62%. Then the console flashed red. Warning, danger, betrayal. Silverite detected, the computer announced. Emotionless, uncaring. Pheromone dispersion initiated, location song core. Dosage maximum, estimated time to dispersal 5 seconds. No. The vents in the song core hissed, pink mist, concentrated, potent, enough to drive a dozen people into murderous frenzy. Dr. Crow's final sabotage, his last revenge. Even from the cage, even defeated, he'd triggered the failsafe. Seraphine shouted from the doorway, raising her mask. Everyone out, evacuate the core, the gas will. But I didn't let go of the controls. Kira didn't move her hand from my shoulder. Lyric stayed pressed against my back, anchored, connected, refusing to break. The mist washed over us. I tasted the sweetness, felt the chemical burn in my blood, the urge to turn, to grab, to dominate, to fight, to kill. I looked at Kira, her pupils dilated, black pools consuming amber and green. She looked back at me, but there was no violence, no feral madness, no loss of control, because we were already bonded. The chemical had nothing to bridge. The connection was absolute, complete, unbreakable. Is that all you've got? I whispered to the ghost of Dr. Crow and the machine, to the fear and the glee and the manipulation. Instead of tearing each other apart, we held tighter, drew closer, found strength in connection. The mist, finding no resistance to overcome, no gap to exploit, simply sharpened our focus, made colors brighter, made the connection stronger, made us more of what we already were. Push, I roared. With a unified surge of will, 3 minds, 3 hearts, 1 purpose, we threw the ark out of the veil storm, out of the nightmare, into clean space, into safety. The sensation was like breaking the surface of an ocean after holding your breath for 2 minutes, like being born, like resurrection. The violet chaos vanished. The stars settled into steady points of hard light, cold, clean, real. The groaning ceased, replaced by the comforting low thrum of standby engines, of systems stable, of survival. We're clear, Prism said, quiet, reverent, disbelieving. We're in open space. We made it. We actually made it. My legs gave way. Kira caught me, lowered me gently to the deck. Lyric collapsed on top of both of us, instantly asleep, exhausted beyond measure. We did it, I whispered, staring at the ceiling, at the crystal rods that had stopped flickering, that glowed soft and steady and safe. We didn't die. Garrison's voice crackled over the comms. Rough, choked with emotion he'd probably deny later. The pods, we didn't launch. We watched the whole thing from the observation deck. Watched the stars move. Watched you fly us through impossible. You crazy, brilliant, insane son of a gun. You actually did it. Silas in the background, voice high with hysteria and relief. 1-star review. Ride was bumpy. No snacks. Pilot was emotional and yelled a lot. Would not recommend. But would do again. Absolutely would do again. Laughter, it rippled through the ship, through the comms, through 300 people realizing they had a tomorrow, had a future, had survived the unsurvivable. But we weren't done yet. Where is he? Kira asked, looking at me with eyes that had seen too much. Dr. Crow, where is he now? He broke out during the transition. Prism buzzed, checking security feeds, used the chaos of the storm, escaped his cage, went back to the Songcore maintenance sublevel, the restricted access area beneath the main chamber. We found him in the dark, in a service corridor few people knew existed, slumped at the base of an auxiliary console, breathing shallow, labored, each breath a struggle. He'd removed the mask, the sleek silver faceplate he'd worn every moment of every day, the barrier between himself and the world. I stopped, blood draining from my face like water from a broken vessel. Kira gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, claws extending reflexively, defensive, shocked. The face beneath was old, ancient, lined with decades of stress and radiation exposure and choices that carved themselves into flesh. A thick white beard covered the jaw, matted, unkempt, one eye milky with cataract, blind, useless. But the structure, the bones beneath, the nose, the brow, the set of the cheekbones, mine. And on his right forearm, exposed by the rolled-up sleeve by fabric torn in his escape, a scar, faint, white, decades old but still visible. The exact same shape as the scratch Kira had given me 5 days ago. 5 days that felt like a lifetime, like forever. Dear Ethan Crow opened his good eye, focused on me with terrible recognition. Hello, he wheezed, blood speckling his lips, lungs failing. Me. I fell to my knees beside him, the world spinning, tilting, nothing making sense. How the veil storm. He coughed, more blood, darker now, eternally hitting, dying. Doesn't just eat space, doesn't just fold dimensions. It eats time, consumes causality, creates loops, paradoxes, possibilities. He reached out a shaking hand, skeletal, failing. I didn't make the turn, Thaddeus, the first time, 40 years ago for me. I didn't make the turn. I panicked, didn't trust them, tried to pilot it alone, solo, isolated, afraid. Tears in his blind eye, streaming down wrinkled cheeks. I crashed. We were stuck in the veil for 40 years. 40 years of watching everyone die. Slowly, painfully, inevitably. The hull degraded, the oxygen ran out, the water, the food, the hope. He looked at Kira, focused his good eye on her with terrible intensity. I watched you die of infection, shield bearer. Watched the wound turn septic. Watched you fade over 3 weeks. Calling for your matriarch. Calling for rescue that never came. I watched you die in my arms. His voice broke. I watched the child starve. Watched Lyric waste away. Watched her stop humming. Stop moving. Stop being. I held her while she took her last breath. While the light left her eyes. Everyone. Every single one. I watched them all die because I was too afraid to trust. Too broken to bond. Too damaged to save. So you went back, I said. Understanding, horror, sympathy, all of it crashing together. The arc spat you out at the beginning, gave you another chance. At the beginning. But I was old, broken. I knew I couldn't do it again. Not the right way, not with kindness and patience and trust. I didn't have time, didn't have decades to build connection slowly, gently, properly. He gripped my wrist, weak, like a bird's claw, like a ghost trying to touch the living. I had to be the villain, had to be the pressure, had to make you hate me enough to love them, had to force the bond because kindness is too slow, and I was racing against my own past, against my own failure, against time itself. You were wrong, I said, tears streaming down my face now, crying for him, for me, for the road not taken. Kindness was the only thing strong enough. Trust was the answer. Not force, not fear. He smiled, first genuine smile I'd ever seen on his face. On my face, peaceful, accepting. I know, he whispered. That's why you were better than me, why you'll do what I couldn't. You'll choose connection over isolation, love over survival, trust over certainty. He looked at Kira, past her, at Lyric hiding behind Kira's legs, watching, understanding more than we knew. I'm sorry, he said to them, to the ghosts of the people he'd failed, to the living proof of his success. For the cage, for the gisawam, for the pain, for making you weapons when you deserve to be seen as people, as family. Kira knelt, reached out, placed her hand on his forehead, gentle, tender, forgiving. The cage is open, she said softly, and you are free. Ethan Crow, the man I would become if I let fear drive me, if I chose survival over love, if I walked the path of isolation, exhaled a long, rattling breath, his last breath. Don't become the curator, he breathed, words failing, fading. Don't become me, promise. Promise you won't. I promise, I said, held his hand, felt the life leave it. I promise. And then he was gone. 48 hours after we crossed the storm, we held the funeral in the observation dome, the place where you could see the stars without filters, without barriers, without anything between you and infinity, just the raw, infinite dark and the light. Garrison helped me carry the body. We'd wrapped him in clean fabric from the hydroponics bay, white, simple, the color of new beginnings, of blank pages. The survivors gathered. Not all 300, but enough, the ones who'd heard the story, who understood what he'd done, what he'd sacrificed, what he'd become so we could be saved. I stood at the airlock, the body at my feet, Kira on my right, Lyric on my left, the three of us together, always together now. I didn't know him long, I said, my voice echoing in the dome, carrying to every corner, every listener. But I knew him better than anyone, because he was me, the version of me that failed, that chose fear over trust, isolation over connection. I looked down at the shrouded form, at the man I might have been, might still become if I made different choices. Dr. Ethan Crow watched everyone he loved die, carried that weight for 40 years, 40 years of guilt and grief and impossible knowledge. And when he got a second chance, when the universe gave him another try, he chose to be the villain, to be hated, to break us down so we could build each other back up stronger. My voice cracked, raw, honest. He forced the bond because he didn't trust love to be strong enough, didn't believe connection could happen naturally, organically, beautifully. And he was wrong, but he was wrong because he cared too much, because he couldn't bear to watch us die again, because he loved us enough to make us hate him. Kira stepped on forward, placed her hand on the shroud, solemn, respectful. In fairy tradition, she said, her voice carrying the weight of ceremony, we honor our fallen by naming their greatest victory, their triumph, their legacy. She looked at me, then at the crowd. De Crow's victory was not survival, was not living 40 extra years, was not knowledge or power or control. His victory was sacrifice. He became the monster so we could remain human, became the villain so we could be heroes, became the cage so we could choose freedom. She looked at me, held my gaze. He gave you the gift he never had, the gift he lost in his timeline, the gift of choice, of trust, of love given freely rather than forced through fear. Lyric stepped forward, hummed, soft, melodic, a funeral dirge in a language she'd never speak with words, a song of mourning and gratitude and farewell. I opened the airlock. The body drifted out, into the stars, into the dark, into forever. I forgive you, I whispered. Watched him drift. And I promise I won't become you. Won't choose fear, won't choose isolation. I'll choose trust. I'll choose them. I'll choose love. Every single time. We stood in silence, watching until the body was just another speck of light among billions, indistinguishable, part of the cosmos, part of everything. Then Garrison's hand on my shoulder, heavy, warm, real. Come on, boss. The living need you more than the dead. We've got work to do. And we walked away, carrying the weight, but not alone, never alone again. An hour later, Matriarch Seraphine stood in the main hangar. The Talon was still docked, sleek, powerful, waiting, her helmet under her arm. She looked at the motley crew of the Ark, the prisoners, the refugees, the survivors, the family. The Ark is damaged, she said to me, voice formal, official. It will take months to repair the FTL drives fully, possibly years to restore all systems, but it is space-worthy, stable. You can limp to the nearest station, request aid, survive. She looked at Akira, then Lyric, then back to me, calculating, assessing. The offer stands shield bearer, you, the child, the human. You have earned a place on the Talon. You can leave this flying wreckage behind, live in comfort, safety, medical bays with real doctors, real food, not synthesized paste, training facilities, purpose, home. She paused, eyes hardening, voice becoming steel. But only you three. I cannot take a prison population, cannot take 300 mouths to feed bodies, to house souls to protect. We are a warship, not a colony, not a refugee transport. 3, that is my limit, that is my offer. The ultimatum, the golden ticket, the way out, the promise of safety and comfort and everything we'd been denied. I looked at the clean, gleaming interior of the ferry cruiser, smelled the filtered air, saw the promise of showers and beds and food that didn't taste like cardboard, saw the promise of no more struggle, no more fear, no more responsibility. Then I looked back at the hydroponics bay visible through the viewport, at Garrison helping a wounded insectoid walk to the medical station, at Silas trying to teach Prism how to play cards with 4 hands laughing when she won every round, at the community we'd built in mud and blood and impossible choices, at the garden we'd grown in hell. No, I said, simple, absolute. Seraphine blinked, genuine surprise crossing her face. No, you called me chosen because I could pilot the ship, I said. Met her eyes, refused to look away. But I didn't pilot it. We did. All of us. Together. Every person here played a part, held a piece, contributed. I pointed to the prisoners visible through the viewport. That is the crew that kept the engine running. That is the heart that kept beating when the storm tried to stop it. That is the family dysfunctional and broken and beautiful that chose to stay together when escape was offered. I looked at Kira, saw the war in her eyes, the pull of duty, of loyalty, of everything she'd been raised to honor and serve. I'm staying, I said to Seraphine, but looked at Kira. This wreck is a garden now. It needs a gardener, needs someone to tend it, to help it grow. I'm staying. Kira looked at her matriarch. I saw the struggle, saw duty fighting against something new, something fragile, something chosen rather than assigned. Then she looked at me, at Lyric clinging to her leg, looking up with trusting golden eyes. And she made her choice. She stepped forward, positioned herself beside me, took my hand, intertwined our fingers, a gesture shocking to the fairy warriors watching, intimate, claiming, choosing. Matriarch, Kira said, her voice strong, clear, certain. I honor you. I thank you for searching, for not abandoning me, for your loyalty and love and everything you've given me. She looked at the crowd of misfits and survivors and broken people trying to fix each other. But my duty is here now. I failed to protect you once. I will not fail to protect them. This is my pack, my family, my choice. She squeezed my hand. The shield bearer stays with those she has chosen to protect. Lyric stepped forward, looked at Seraphine, hissed, defiant, protective, then wrapped her arms around Kira's leg and stared at the matriarch with challenge in her eyes. Seraphine stared, her face unreadable for a long moment. The silence stretched, taut, fragile. Then something in her expression softened, just slightly, just enough. She stepped forward, close enough that I could see the scars on her muzzle, the gray in her fur, the weight of decades of command and loss and impossible decisions. She looked at me, studied me with eyes that had seen centuries of war and death and sacrifice. Human, she said, you have taken my shield bearer from me. No, ma'am, I said, held my ground, met her eyes. She chose, I just gave her the option. The freedom, the space to decide for herself. Seraphine's eyes narrowed, then she turned to Kira. I searched for you, the matriarch said, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable, almost breaking. When the attack came, when we were scattered across the void, I thought you were dead. I mourned you, held ceremony, spoke your name to the stars. I thought I had lost you forever. Kira's eyes filled with tears. Matriarch. No. Seraphine held up a hand, gentle, final. You are not my shield bearer anymore, Kira. Not in the traditional sense. Not bound by oath and duty and tradition. That bond is broken, released, dissolved. She reached out, touched Kira's shoulder with infinite gentleness. You have found a new duty, a new pack, a new purpose, and you have chosen them freely, with open eyes, with full heart, with absolute certainty. Her hand moved, formal, deliberate, ancient gesture. She placed it over Kira's heart, over the place where life beats strong and certain. I release you from your oath, from your duty, from your obligation to me and to our people. You are free, Kira, free to be whoever you choose to be, free to walk whatever path calls to you, free to love whom you will. A tear rolled down Kira's cheek, cutting through fur, visible, undeniable. Thank you, matriarch, she whispered, voice breaking. Thank you for understanding, for releasing me, for giving me permission to choose. Mrs. Seraphine stepped back, straightened, became formal again, military, composed, but her eyes held warmth, pride, love. If you ever need me, she said, voice carrying to every listener, the Talon will come. You are still fairy, still one of our people, still mine in the ways that matter. Just not the way you were, not bound, but connected, always connected. She looked at Lyric, smiled, genuine, tender. And you, little one, grow strong, grow brave. Your shield bearer is fierce. Learn from her, be like her, but be yourself too. Be free. She saluted, military precision, fist over heart, ancient gesture of respect and honor and farewell. You are no longer my shield, Kira. You are theirs, and that is enough. That is everything. The airlock began to seal. Seraphine turned, walked toward her ship, her warriors following, disciplined, silent, respectful. But she paused at the threshold, looked back one last time. If you die out here, she said, voice carrying across the distance, do not say I didn't warn you. Do not say I didn't offer safety. Do not blame me when the void comes calling. Then softer, almost too quiet to hear. But I think you'll be fine. You've found something stronger than duty, stronger than tradition. You've found choice, and that shield bearer is the strongest shield of all. The airlock sealed, the Talon's engines flared. Beautiful, powerful, a streak of light against the dark. And then it was gone, vanishing into the infinite, into elsewhere, into other stories. We stood there, the three of us, watching the empty space where it had been. Kira was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Not sad, not exactly, but something else. Something complicated, relief and grief and gratitude and fear all mixed together. Thank you, she whispered. Not to me, not to anyone, just to the universe, to the moment, to the choice. Thank you for letting me go. I squeezed her hand. Thank you for choosing to stay. Lyric looked up at both of us, made a small chirping sound. Happy, content, home. And we walked away, back to the hydroponics bay, back to the garden, back to the work of building something new from the ruins of the old, back to our family. 48 hours after we crossed the storm, evening. The medical bay was quiet, the hum of the recyclers a gentle rhythmic lullaby, peaceful in a way I'd never associated with the starships, with survival, with life lived in metal boxes hurtling through the void. I was lying on the main bio bed, still wearing my jacket. Someone, probably Kira, had taken my boots off, placed them neatly beside the bed. Respectful, caring, home. I'd slept for 30 hours straight, exhaustion that went deeper than bone, deeper than muscle, soul tired, but the kind that comes from honest work, from survival earned, from choices made and kept. But I wasn't alone. Lyric was curled on my chest, a tight ball of gray and white fur, her head tucked under my chin, one small hand gripping my collar, holding on, anchoring, trusting. She was snoring softly, a high whistling sound that should have been annoying but made me smile, made my chest warm, made everything worth it. And Kira was draped beside me, protective even in rest, her head on my shoulder, arm thrown across my torso and Lyric both, heavy, possessive, claiming. Her purr was audible, deep, resonant, vibrating through the bed frame, through the deck plates, through me. Every time the purr hit a certain frequency, matched a certain harmonic, the monitors on the wall pulsed in sync. Thump purr, hearts and machines finding harmony. The ship's diagnostic screen in the corner showed hull integrity stabilizing, fueled by the localized resonance in the medbay, by the power of three beings choosing to be together, choosing connection over isolation, love over fear. Outside the observation window, Garrison stood with Silas and Prism, looking in, watching, smiling. Look at that, Garrison said, shaking his head, grinning like a fool, like a father, like someone who'd found something he didn't know he'd been searching for. We spent 100 years looking for a power source to cross the galaxy, building engines and generators and fusion reactors, searching for the perfect fuel. He gestured at the three of us sleeping in a tangled pile of limbs and fur and trust. Turns out the strongest energy source in the universe is just being a really good pillow, just being there, just choosing to stay. Silas nodded, wiped his eyes, not crying, just dusty, obviously. Human superpower, thermal regulation and emotional anchoring, highly efficient, would recommend. 5 stars. Should we wake them? Prism asked. Curious, analytical. The mechanic has been unconscious for 31.4 hours. Medical protocols suggest. Are you insane? Garrison turned, looked at her like she'd suggested spacing themselves. That man just flew us through a reality storm, piloted a broken ship through impossible, saved 300 lives. He's earned his rest. And if you wake those two, he nodded at Kira and Lyric, they'll tear your arms off. All 4 of them. Prism looked down at her limbs, concerned. Every single one. They walked away, quiet, respectful, leaving us to our peace. Inside the room, I shifted in my sleep, unconscious, dreaming, but not of drowning, not of failure, not of the woman behind the glass. I dreamed of gardens, of green growing things, of children laughing in artificial sunlight, of a warrior with amber eyes who chose me not because she had to, but because she wanted to, of a child who learned to speak by listening to my heartbeat. I dreamed of home. And when I woke hours later, stiff and sore and covered in fur, the first thing I heard was Kira's voice. Good morning, Thaddeus Crow. Not soft, not gentle, just matter of fact. The way you greet someone who's part of your routine, part of your life, part of your everyday, part of your pack, part of your family, part of your heart. Morning, I rasped, throat dry, voice rough. Lyric stirred, looked up at me with sleepy golden eyes, made a small chirping sound, content, safe, then went back to sleep. Because she could, because she was home, because we all were. How long, I asked. 32 hours, Kira said, standing, stretching, wincing as her wound healing but still tender pulled. Prism wanted to wake you, medical protocols, vital signs, science. I convinced her otherwise. Convinced, threatened. I laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt, but it was the good kind of hurt. The kind that meant you were alive, that you'd fought and survived and won. We have work to do, Kira said. All business, always forward, always moving. The hydroponics bay needs new irrigation systems. Sector 9 has a hull breach that needs patching. The FTL drives are complete scrap, need full replacement, months of work, maybe years. Sounds like a lot of fixing, I said. Good thing we have a mechanic. She offered her hand. I took it, let her pull me to my feet. Strong, capable, my warrior, my partner, my choice. Lyric woke, yawned, showing all her teeth, dangerous and adorable and absolutely trusting, then scrambled onto my shoulders, perched there like a parrot, purring, always purring. We walked to the door, the three of us, together, always together now. Through the window I could see the arc stretching out, miles of corridor, thousands of rooms, some damaged, some dark, some still dangerous, but some more and more each day were lit, alive, filled with people building something new, something impossible, something beautiful. You know, I said to Kira as we walked, Lyric's weight warm on my shoulders, I came here to salvage a ship. Didn't expect to salvage myself. You didn't salvage yourself, Thaddeus, Kira said, looking at me, really looking, seeing. You chose to be saved. You chose to let us in. You chose trust over fear, connection over isolation. That was your choice, your decision, your strength. She paused, smiled, small but real and absolutely devastating. There is a difference between being rescued and choosing to be saved. One is passive, the other is the bravest thing anyone can do. Yeah, I said, smiled back, felt Lyric purr against my neck, felt Kira's hand in mine, felt the weight of the future pressing down, but held up by three instead of one. There is. And together, mechanic warrior child, we walked into the garden, into the future, into the light, into home. 3 months later, the message beacon pulsed, steady, reliable, rhythmic, broadcasting on old colonial frequencies, on every channel anyone might be listening to. This is the Lotus Ark, formerly a prison barge, now something else. We survived the Veil storm crossing, against impossible odds, against all logic. We survived. A pause, then continuing. If you're out there, if you're running, if you're broken, if you've been told you're disposable or dangerous or beyond saving, we have room. We have gardens growing food that shouldn't exist. We have water. We have purpose. Another pause. Longer. We have hope. Come find us. Come build with us. Come be part of something that probably shouldn't work but does anyway. Come be family. The signal transmitted, pulsing into the void. A lighthouse for the lost. A beacon for the broken. A call to those who thought they'd been forgotten. And far away, weeks, distant months, maybe another ship picked up the signal. Another crew of misfits and exiles and people who'd been told they weren't worth saving. They looked at each other, at their damaged ship, at their dwindling supplies, at the choice before them. And they turned their ship toward the source, toward the ark, toward the garden growing in the dark, toward home. In the quiet of the hydroponics bay, under the purple lights that made everything look like a dream, Thaddeus Crow sat on a crate, Lyric on his lap, Kira beside him, working on plans, on schematics, on the future. We'll need to expand the water recycling, he said, pointing to diagrams. If more ships come, if the beacon works, we'll need capacity for hundreds more. Then we expand, Kira said. Simple, absolute. We make room. We always make room. Lyric hummed, working on something. A small device made of scavenged parts, creating, building, learning. And Thaddeus looked at them, at his family, at the impossible thing they'd built from ruins and desperation and choice. He thought about Dr. Crow, about the man he might have been, the future he'd avoided by choosing differently. He thought about Sarah, about the woman behind the glass, about forgiveness, about letting go. He thought about the 300 people living in the Ark, building lives, growing food, creating art, falling in love, having children, being human in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory. And he smiled, because this right here, right now, sitting in a garden that shouldn't exist with two aliens who'd become his whole world, this was enough. This was everything. This was home.